Welcome to Marine Tech Talk, a podcast about how Teledyne Marine's innovative technologies are enabling scientific discoveries and commercial tasks in the world's oceans and waterways. In our first episode of the new year, we are joined by Dr. Aaron Fisk, a professor at the University of Windsor and science director for the Real-Time Aquatic Ecosystem Observation Network, or RAEON. We're also joined by Caitlin Jonson, a research and operations director at RAEON, and Cailin Burmaster, a marine technician for RAEON. The team is using a Slocum glider from Teledyne Webb Research to investigate the health of the Great Lakes. Now, here are our guests with the host of Marine Tech Talk, Melissa Rossi.
Welcome to Marine Tech Talk. For our listeners, thanks for taking time out of your day today and spending a little of it with me today. So today's interview is a little bit different. We actually have three people on the show with me from the University of Windsor in Canada. I heard about their work from a news article that showed up in my inbox recently and thought it would be great if we could record a podcast with them. The news story that I did receive was titled, "Researchers at Windsor Use Underwater Robot to Collect Great Lakes Data." And the story went on to talk about the Real-Time Aquatic Ecosystem Observation Network, or RAEON, and their glider that they've named the Cormorant, which is being used to collect data relating to harmful algal blooms and oxygen levels in Lake Erie. So joining me today are Dr. Aaron Fisk, Science Director at RAEON and a professor at the University of Windsor, Caitlin Jonson, a Director of Research and Operations at RAEON, and Cailin Burmaster, the Marine Technician for RAEON. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Hi. Thanks, Melissa.
Hi.
So I'm going to start with Aaron, if you don't mind. If you could please give me an overview of your program at University of Windsor and how that relates to RAEON, what that relationship is, that'd be great.
Yeah, so RAEON actually is centered at the University of Windsor, and what it is it's a network that provides instruments and equipment mainly for in situ work in the Great Lakes. So it's really focused around the Great Lakes Basin. So it was a $16 million grant that we were awarded from the Canadian Foundation for Innovation, which supplies instruments for science and engineering in Canada and helps build buildings and stuff federally, and then the Ontario Ministry of Research and Innovation. The idea behind these programs is to give equipment to researchers to do their research. So it doesn't really give us the money to do the research. It gives us the money to buy the equipment, to hire people like Cailin to come and do work, and Catlin to help run the network. And so RAEON was actually, there's 5 universities involved in it from around Canada. And a big important part of this was the 4 gliders, the 4 Slocum gliders that we purchased. But there's a whole bunch of other equipment that supports the gliders and that the gliders support. So real-time buoys and other things like that. But a really important component of this was the gliders, because it gave us an ability to work in all 4 Canadian Great Lakes, although we will also work in Lake Michigan, gave us the ability to go out and do spatial work, be able to go out and collect data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also allows us to work really closely with other Canadian researchers, but even more important, I would argue, is to work with our binational partner in the United States. So we interact with a number of agencies, and they have supported us as well, like the USGS. We've also been working with US EPA and are going to be working with US EPA at a state level, Ohio. And they also have some gliders. So we're coming together as a group to study the Great Lakes.
So this is really a big collaborative effort among, it sounds like, a number of agencies across a couple of countries here to look a little closer at the Great Lakes and the data there. What exactly are you looking for with the gliders in the lakes there?
So we have a number of components that we can put on the 4 gliders, and we've sort of engineered the gliders to sort of have 2 shallow water and 2 deeper water. And we can put a number of different science bays on it. So you get your standard sort of dissolved oxygen and those kinds of things. But we've also got sensors for looking for harmful algal blooms, which is a big issue in the Great Lakes, particularly Lake Erie. We have a hydroacoustic science bay that we're going to use to look at, to do fish stock assessments and also to look at probably invertebrates and things like that. We've also added a component that's going to allow us to talk to other instruments in the water. So, the glider can slide up to some equipment that's in the water for 4 or 5 years. It can download the data for us. We don't have to go release it and spend the time and money to do that. And then another big component is putting acoustic receivers to go look for acoustically tagged fish. So these are little tags in the fish. Put out receivers to listen for them. What the gliders really allow us to do, and what we're really excited about, is being able to go out into parts of the Great Lakes where we don't have receivers and search for fish. Because if we've learned anything about fish movement in the Great Lakes in the last 8 or 9 years, it's that they move a lot more than we thought. And they often go to areas we didn't expect. So that's a big issue and a real excitement for some of the work that we're doing with the gliders.
So when we talked originally, when we were setting up this call, you had mentioned that you had a lot of big plans actually for the gliders this year. And of course, like everybody in the whole world, COVID happened. And so many of the plans that we originally had, or you originally had for work this year, didn't get to be. What were you planning to do? And then we can talk a little bit about what you were actually able to accomplish this year.
Yeah, so we did. I mean, we had plans to have gliders out in mid-April. Again, this is one of those, collaborative things. We were going to be working in Lake Michigan with USGS and other groups. What we have in the Great Lakes is something called CMSI, Cooperative Science Monitoring Initiative. So every year, one of the 5 Great Lakes, both countries get together and doing a lot of extra work. So we were definitely going to support that. So we were going to start in April, and of course, COVID slowed things down. We weren't really able to get serious about doing anything until July or August. The other thing that we really, really wanted to do this year was to support work in Lake Erie, which is really close to us. So we're very close to Lake Erie. And Lake Erie has a lot of harmful algal bloom issues and dissolved oxygen issues in the Central Basin, which has issues. Both of those issues have issues for fish health, but also for water utility companies taking water out of Lake Erie. If things go anoxic, a water utility company trying to produce water for people, they have to make changes. And most of the time they don't know it's coming, and that can really set back what they're doing and cost lots of money and interrupt, water supplies. So in the end, when we realized that we might be able to get one glider out this year in August and September, that was the obvious one to try to go and do, is to go into Lake Erie, because NOAA has a number of models that predict hypoxia and harmful algal blooms. And it's really important. I mean, millions of people, rely on Lake Erie for their water supply and those kinds of things. So we wanted to get out there and do that. There's other things about Lake Erie that were really important to us as well, which was, it was a shallow water system. We wanted to try these new G3 gliders in that shallow water. Gave us a chance to really cut our teeth in a system that was probably going to be our hardest to work in because of the shallow water. There's also a large commercial fishery there, so we had to be concerned about commercial nets. And there's also a lot of ships that go through that area. So it was a good place to start for us. And that was the goal of that work, was to collect and provide additional data for hypoxia and harmful algal blooms. Now, this year was not a big harmful algal bloom year for Lake Erie, I think in large part because the water levels were high, but we had significant hypoxia. And because of COVID, we really had a lack of data to support those models and build on those models. So this mission, although small, only 2 weeks, really provided some really unique and important data for the entire community.
How did you find that data correlated with the predictions that had been produced for that area before? Was it it's interesting. I don't know whether you've had a chance to even assess that yet.
Yeah, we haven't. And one of the things we have to do right now is ground truth some of the data that we had. So before we start comparing it to the models, we have to go out and start to compare and make sure our numbers make sense. I'm sure they do. Cailin and then our partner Russ Miller with USGS, we did a lot of calibrations before the glider went out. So I'm sure the data is good, but that's kind of the first step. And then we'll start to compare it to the predicted models and see what's going on. The nice thing about the glider, though, is it gives resolution that is really unique. So because we were going up and down the water columns, we could really define where the thermocline was and where the anoxic zone was. So they're waiting to see that data, and that will be the next step, is to QA/QC the data and then talk to the modelers.
So now that we're talking about Lake Erie, actually, I'm going to bring Catlin and Cailin into the conversation here. First of all, was this your first deployment with the glider in the lakes? Is this the first time you guys have actually operationally used the gliders there?
Yes, that was the first time. We've both been through the training at Teledyne. This is my first time, I should say, not Kaylin's first time deploying a glider, but our first RAEON glider.
Yeah, I'm coming from a background of having worked on the East Coast in Halifax and then the West Coast offshore of Vancouver Island. And so working in the Great Lakes was definitely a new experience for me.
Have you used gliders in other areas before, Cailin? Because I think we just said that you've actually operated gliders previously. So is this a different experience in the lakes, and how do they operate differently, or did you find that they were similar? I mean, what was your operational experience?
So I first started working with gliders as a co-op student for Dalhousie University in Halifax. And there I was doing a lot of when I was in Halifax, I was helping out a lot with deployments and recoveries, but not so much with the piloting. And I gained a lot of my piloting experience when I moved out to the West Coast and started working with a group out here offshore of Vancouver Island. There's similarities and there's differences for sure. So working offshore of Vancouver Island, the gliders are going hundreds of kilometers out into the Pacific Ocean. So there's not a lot of ship traffic. There's no dense concentrations of commercial fishing, and there's definitely not recreational boating happening out there. So those were all concerns that we had to be aware of when we were deploying in Lake Erie. So that was one, new aspect that I wasn't used to, and which made me quite nervous. I had actually met Catlin and one of the other technicians for RAEON at the Teledyne training last September. And when Catlin said that they were planning to deploy in 12 meters of water, I thought that was very brave, if not a little bit crazy. And I kind of thought to myself, wow, I'm kind of glad that I'm working in much deeper water where there's not all these obstacles to worry about. But now, a year later, here I am helping RAEON out with this very ambitious mission, in my opinion. And it went really well. So when you're actually piloting the glider, it's the same software, whether you're offshore in the Pacific or you're in the lakes. And I was already familiar with that interface, so that helped a lot. But as we had said before, it was definitely a collaborative effort. We couldn't have done this without the Ohio Division of Wildlife. They were giving us locations of those commercial fishing nets. USGS helped deploy and recover the gliders physically. And then Russ from the Great Lakes Environmental Research Lab, he did a lot of help with getting us set up, or he helped out a lot with getting us set up. He did the functional checkout and the ballasting of the glider and delivered it to the deployment site. And he helped out quite a bit with providing guidance for piloting in the Great Lakes. Like I said, that was a totally new environment for me. And as a new group, this was our first mission. And so Russ was pretty invaluable there with helping us out.
Well, and if I can interrupt, Cailin really made it easy for Catlin and Todd and I. We have another, Todd Ludley as our field manager. But Cailin was great because she had this experience. It really helped us. We were nervous about doing it, and to have that kind of experience with us, and that really made a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, you had mentioned it's, oftentimes not something that the probably average glider operator needs to think about. So I don't know whether this question's right for Catlin or Cailin, but either one of you. You mentioned recreational boaters. It's a whole different thing when you've got a lot of boaters up on a surface of water. And as we all know, the gliders periodically surface to telemetry data or position, on some schedule, depending on how you set them up. Was there any special consideration that you all had to make in advance for for the potential of recreational gliders in the area? I mean, I don't know if there's special warnings that have to go out, or you have a picture on the tail that says "Don't touch me" or something on the glider, because we've got plenty of stories of recreational boaters coming along, seeing a glider floating on the surface, like, ooh, that glider must be lost, or what is that thing, and actually pulling it out of the water. So what did you have to do to prepare for that?
Yeah, so we definitely have a lot of notifications all over the glider. Just saying, like, for research with phone numbers to call if anyone runs into it. So I think that helps. I think it's one of those things that if you did see that as a recreational boater, it would be probably concerning, like looking. But it's also one of those things when we deployed this glider, we kind of crossed our fingers and hoped for the best, just to kind of, reiterate what Cailin and Aaron said with all the challenges, not only just the recreational boaters, but the commercial fishing. We've run into problems with that, just with having some sensors out in the water that don't really move around.
Yeah, I know. So there are definitely challenges with running in an area where there is a lot of either infrastructure of some sort or another. Fishing gear in the area is always a challenge, and certainly boating, whether it's big boat traffic or recreational boaters, can be a real operational consideration for sure. So how long did you deploy the glider in Lake Erie for that particular study? How long were you in the water with the glider?
I think we could go for a little bit longer. We had battery left over when we recovered the glider. It was more a matter of logistics, with coordinating with these other groups, and then finding a good weather window as we were heading into the fall. But I think in the future we could do slightly longer missions, a matter of a few weeks, but with the limitations of the glider, I think we'll be looking at less than a month for all of our missions.
Although I think in some of the deeper areas like Lake Erie, we were working in the shallowest area in the Great Lakes, the western basin of Lake Erie. So I think for Superior, which is like more than 400 meters deep in places, in Huron and Erie and Ontario, and people have done glider work. There's other glider work that have been done around the Great Lakes. We anticipate being able to go potentially for a couple of months, depending on the situation. But Erie is a tough one because of the shallow water and those other constraints. But it arguably is probably the one we need the most data from.
Do you have a deployment schedule? I know things are still a bit up in the air, although hopefully it's getting easier for you to operate now. But do you have a deployment schedule for the other lakes for the new year or for the rest of this year? What are your plans?
So, well, the first thing is we're organizing a meeting of the other gliders. There's about 4 other gliders in the Great Lakes, including a new one with US EPA. So we're setting up a meeting in mid-November to talk. And one of the big things that we want to do this year is, I think it was Joel Hoffman said, I can picture us having 4 gliders working simultaneously across, Lake Erie to really define the hypoxia. So we're starting to put that together. And we had started to do that last year. So I would assume we're going to have sort of a similar schedule going forward. Some of the work we were going to do was kind of around fish movements a little bit, and we will certainly support CMSI next year. I'm not sure what the plan is, if they're just going to push the Lake Michigan CMSI to 2021. I know they're talking about that. Just 2020 was just a year to forget, and move forward with these other plans. But we have requests from about 20 individual research groups that have glider requests, and we haven't even put that out there yet. So we expect all 4 gliders to be running pretty much continuously through the summer, if we can handle it. And that's another important thing is, we want to work with the other groups to have people like Cailin, who's such a valuable asset to us, working with these other groups, keeping an eye on each other's gliders in the Great Lakes.
So do you see those programs as being sort of joint piloting programs, Cailin? Is that is that a group effort when you've got multiple gliders from 2 different groups? And how would you plan to run that kind of a piloting challenge?
It definitely helps to have multiple pilots, even just with one glider, because when the glider's in the water, I kind of consider myself to be on call throughout the mission. There's always challenges and difficulties that can arise. If the glider aborts, we need to be there to fix whatever the issue is. And so it's I always like having a primary pilot and then somebody as a backup. And that's the system that Russ and I had going for this particular deployment. So we would kind of designate when we were available. And then I think we were both balancing family vacations in September as well. And so one of us would be the primary pilot, and then there'd be somebody who would kind of check in here and there to help provide support. And so that's a great system. And if we have 4 gliders in the water at once, I think we'll definitely need a couple more pilots.
I think someone's pushing for some more help there.
Well, we'll see. I've been part of with the group on the West Coast. I've been part of some test deployments where we had 3 gliders in the water at once for about a week, and that kept a group of about 6 of us pretty busy. But we were also still learning. So I think as we get each new glider in the water and get familiar with each machine and, the objectives for each mission and the environment, I think we'll get it streamlined. But yeah, having more pilots is definitely an asset.
You mentioned earlier about some other equipment that you were looking to deploy. I'm not even sure if you actually have the equipment yet, but that's for the fish tracking. So what were your plans for the fish tracking? And I am curious because I know you were doing it a different way. You've been they've been doing fish tracking a different way, I think through moorings or something previously. And now you're looking to do a more active fish tracking with the gliders. So what is the plan there for the fish tracking study?
Well, the big thing that the gliders are going to allow us to do is to go into the deep areas where we don't have receivers, or it's really difficult to do the receivers. So our big plan is, and the other thing is, it's very costly to cover a lake and receivers. So most of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie has quite a few receivers, but even there, you can't cover all the area. And so the idea would be to cover the areas where we don't have receivers. And the nice thing is we've learned a lot about what fish are doing. So we know the times to go out into the deep water. It's not worth doing that in the winter when the temperatures are all cool across the lake. But certainly in the summer, having the gliders out in deep water looking for our tag fish. We know they disappear because we don't see them, and then they return, the following year. This will help us identify where they are, and that's really important because we make estimates of what the populations of fish are in the Great Lakes, and it's based on regular surveys and stuff, but those surveys can only cover a certain amount of area. And so this kind of work and the gliders really opened up that ability to truly ground truth methods we've been using for decades. And there's a lot of interest in that in the fish community and the managers that make decisions. And, the fish in the Great Lakes, the fishing, recreational and commercial is worth over $8 billion a year. So this is an important fishery that I don't think people realize. And I think the gliders have a potential to really do an even better job managing those populations, particularly in the face of increasing temperatures and changes in water levels and all the other things that are going on.
Yeah, sure. Are there particular species of fish that you're tracking, or is it just general population?
Well, there's certainly fish. There's certainly commercially and recreationally important fish. So the salmon and trout, we have a lot of Chinook salmon, which are not native to the Great Lakes, but get big and are big fisheries and are charter boat fishermen. So certainly those kinds of fish. Walleye or pickerel is another important commercial and recreational fish that people want to catch and eat, and we need to understand where they're moving and what they're doing at different times. So certainly those are important species, but there's also species at risk and endangered species like sturgeon. There's been a lot of acoustic telemetry work on them, and they take off into the middle of the lake, and we have no idea where they go there a lot of the time. And again, the glider is going to help us try to find out where they're going and if there's critical habitat, and to protect those kinds of species. So a combination of management stuff as well as protecting endangered and threatened species within the Great Lakes and protecting critical habitat.
Yeah. Do you have an idea when that work is likely to get started?
I'm hoping We will be at it in April if we're allowed to. I mean, I guess none of us know what's going to happen with COVID. We are certainly going to start. That's one of our things this fall, is to start reaching out and advertising and talking to the research groups that we've talked to before about what they need and want to do next year. Again, this is the whole glider within the Great Lakes community is getting together. You know, I could see situations where, you know, we have a glider in Lake Erie helping US EPA, and then we need work done in Lake Superior. So, you know, they're going to use the US EPA glider there. So the collaboration stuff going forward. But yeah, we hope to have Cailin up 24 hours a day, starting about April 15th, running the 4 gliders. But yeah, no, we have big plans. We did this year. Hopefully we're just going to be out next year.
That sounds great.
Well, I'd take a vacation until April, but I can't.
I was going to say, Cailin, I don't hear any vacation in your future at all. Sorry.
Well, the great thing is that Catlin and Todd are also trained pilots, and maybe Aaron, I don't know if you want to get spun up there too, but it'd be great if we had a little glider camp or something when the gliders first go in, and we can all be, I don't know, can have our headquarters, and it'll look like, ground control, and
yeah.
We'll figure it out together.
Well, it sounds like a great vision to me, and I know you guys will make it a reality. I want to thank you for joining us today, and actually I'm hoping to have you back on the show perhaps next year after you've had some opportunity to put all 4 gliders in the water and bring back some data and take a look at it. I'd be interested to hear how that all goes with you. Is there anything else that maybe we didn't touch on before we take off here that you might like to add? I know, Catlin, you had some communication issues before. So are you back online with us? And is there anything else that you'd like to add?
One thing just to add that's really important, and a cool thing about gliders is that even though there are challenges due to COVID, once we deploy these, we can operate them remotely. So they provide us a lot of benefits in this kind of time of uncertainty, and we can still, collect a lot of this valuable research.
Yes, they are actually the ultimate social distancing robot, I guess, right? So
well, they attract the crowd, I'll tell you that.
Cool for right now.
And Cailin or Aaron, anything else that you'd like listeners to know, or do you think we've covered it?
Well, if you are a researcher in the Great Lakes and you're interested in collecting data or would be interested in having some of the data for the gliders or need missions, then I would encourage people to go to the RAEON website, which is just raeon.org. And you can go in there and look at all the instruments and equipment and stuff that we do, but there's a glider component there, and you can link and make requests. And so if you're interested and people need data, we're here to help. We're open for business.
This is great. Thank you again very much, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks for listening to the Marine Tech Talk podcast. For more information about the work being done in the Great Lakes by RAEON, we'll put a link to the organization's Twitter handle in the notes for this episode. If you have any questions or comments about this show, you can email host Melissa Rossi at marinetechtalk@teledyne.com. If you like this podcast, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're hearing this show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.